Thank you. For that, there are two aspects. One is, of course, India overall as a market is growing. I mean, currently we're close to around $600 billion in terms of retail and SME lending. The size is growing almost 20% CAGR. And other part, if you look at the reference point, even the US market, for example, the biggest story is around on the lending side.
Right.
In India, it was the other way. And secondly, in payments, I think somewhere is established who's the leader and what are the other. So everybody is focusing on the lending side, but overall lending opportunity. I think that each and every fintech, in fact, most of the companies that interact with, everybody is having a different take on this opportunity.
Right.
So, in my opinion, because one is the opportunity is very, very large for sure, and secondly, there is a huge opportunity for finding your niche and building a large business out of this. That's another important aspect. And when you refer to US, and there are so many, as they use the word unicorns, they are in lending side, even China for that matter.
Right.
So there is a lot to learn and probably replicate in our market. So that's why, in my opinion, everybody is looking at this opportunity as a big one and focusing on the lending side. But having said that, there are different aspects of lending everybody is focusing on, each and every fintech. So first of all, both these points are not interlinked. This is this is how I think. The reason for that is like as we said, like an opportunity is large, but what you do with this opportunity, that's something you need to figure out first.
Right.
So in that sense, the competition is irrelevant, because all said and done, there is huge number of business, in SME or retail or what book sizes banks are having. And if you compare it to fintechs, with not even 0.1% of that, that's the opportunity. So that's the last worry anybody should have, that who I'm competing with.
Right.
But what most importantly, what you need to focus on is what is the niche, where you want to focus, because it's all said and done, especially for a startup. So when you have to build a business, it's all about balancing what kind of resources you have, and of course you have to generate some revenue. And all said and done, funding is one aspect of the business, but you have to look at the model which can generate revenue for you and you can sustain that. So in that sense, the profitability is not much of an issue. Like for example, Rubik as a company, we were always bottom line focused. We were always unit economics positive from day one, every transaction. And today that is adding up. So that was our take on this opportunity. And so I personally feel that, I mean, we need not even think about competition, but more than that, you need to do that homework properly, that what exactly I'm doing and how I'm going to address that particular issue, what problem I'm solving, and how I can build a sustainable model out of it.
I mean, adopting technology, and perhaps technology is the major part of their business.
Correct. First of all, one aspect is from the customer side.
Right.
So how fast you can do the matchmaking, that's where we use technology. Second part is what kind of product the customer can get, that's where you use data. Like for example, we hear a lot of things about social media, data points.
Yes.
So what we do is we have something called Rubik Magic Score.
Right.
It's a blend of alternate data as well as the conventional data point.
True.
So what we try to say, the second aspect is how you can get a perfect matchmaking. It
Right.
means, like suppose I am a SME operating out of a small town, and if I reach out to a particular bank, that bank may or may not entertain or maybe as per their credit policy, I am not fitting into that profile. But I cannot go to 10 financial institutions and find out. That's where the technology will leverage.
True.
So coming back to, but the basics of the business always remain same.
Right.
Giving money is probably the easier thing. So that way we use data. So first thing is everybody's having a risk appetite. As per that, they have a policy and the programs. So we try to match that. So you have a borrower who is fitting into your profile.
Right.
That's the first step. Secondly, we use a lot of data, as I said, like alternate data as well as the conventional data. Third part, what we try to do is, in terms of we are trying to crunch those timelines using this technology. Even unsecured market for that is again fairly large. So, and then you have to look at within specific segments, and that so ticket sizes and the strategy, you have to work on that particular basis. Like for example, if somebody is why first of all somebody is borrowing that money? It's for a travel or buying some consumer durable or something else. You need to ascertain that. But the basics will always remain same. That first thing, like, because always in financing we say two things. One is the ability to pay, and second the intention. So ability is something which will be your past track record, your maybe a bank statement analysis, another thing which you can use technology to come to some decision faster. And intention to pay, that's where I think the alternate data can give you some pointers.
Right.
There is no way to gauge the intention. One of the critical aspects is going to be that how contactable that customer is.
Right.
That is because while you're working online, you're giving money online is going to a particular account, but when you have to recover that money, how are you going to do that?
Right.
So all these basics I think we should never compromise on. This is, and as the market evolves, maybe next 3 years, 5 years, whatever, things will be different. But today it's a transition phase. So you have to have a blended kind of approach, but you should not compromise on the basics of lending. This is how such large institutions are already built. Scalability is not linked to opportunity here, because there are so many aspects involved. One is, as I said, like what is your take on that opportunity? Right. Secondly, what is your thought process, how you're going to build on? Like for example, like in our case, we focus on profitability, we focus on unit economics, and that's how we build a business. But opportunity is anyway there. So in my opinion, the most important, the company which is going to scale up is which is not looking like, for example, I need not worry about where my next funding is coming. If I'm always worried that, the typical VC question that how many months you have money, how much you last, that's a worry. If that is there with you, then you cannot scale up. So it means you have to build a sustainable model. It means you have to generate revenue. Like for example, Rubik as a company, we have generated in 3.5 years time close to 50 crore revenue. We are hitting around 3.5 crore revenue per month. So this is what our thought process was. So to answer your question, in my opinion, the most important part for scalability is going to be, apart from the opportunity which exists, is that what is how you are looking at that model, how you make it a sustainable model, and how you keep it asset light.
Right.
Because the moment you say for every maybe 1 million of disbursement, I need to add 10 or 20 people, it's not a scalable option. My personal opinion, maybe half of them may not survive in next 1 year or so something. Because reason for that is, and this is again I'm wearing my banker's hat and just thinking like that, because the basics have not changed.
Right.
But as far as fintech is concerned, I think it's a very broad word with that. But within specifically lending fintech, again there are 4-5 categories. So when it comes to the NBFC, basically whether you see a peer-to-peer is regulated now, or overall if you're seeing unsecured lending, it's going to be about one, how you keep your operating costs lower. It means the biggest cost is always people.
Yes.
Like if you have to hire people to complete a transaction, even if you give somebody online approval, doesn't really help. Right? So one is operating cost, and secondly, controlling your net credit losses.
Absolutely.
That is another part. And the only way you can do that is, again, I'm a firm believer in data and tech. That how you can crunch that particular timeline. That's about it. So, in my opinion, in NBFCs, the new age, earlier ones were established, the new age, barring 3-4 names, most of them will probably shut down. Yeah. So sustainability, I think, is linked to the business model.
Right.
And you have to have a robust business model with a robust revenue stream.
Right.
Without that model, nothing can be built. When I look at a lot of times when people raise money and they're using that money to build that book, so how sustainable is that? I always ask this question, and I don't get any answer for that. Secondly, if your raw material cost is high and your the end product which your customer is looking for that loan, if that is dictated by your market, it means your competitors are offering far more efficiently and better rates. Then how are you going to make money? And secondly, if you don't have a collection mechanism, if something goes wrong, and how are you going to collect that money? So these are the 2-3 aspects which I think. So I am not generalizing, as I said again. So this is purely I keep analyzing different models and keep looking at and just evaluate as a banker and from my past experience. So that's from that I feel that some of them are not giving much of importance to this. A lot of times, in fact, when I interact with people, and what is celebrated is how much money you raise. In fact, I don't even like talking about that. Reason is, like earlier also, like when any business raise,
how much money do you make?
Yeah, that should be a question. And secondly, the capital, if you raise capital to expand your business, why you should be in use for that, right? And sometimes when you say I've raised this kind of money or that kind of money, if you're using that money to build a book, that's not sustainable. Absolutely. And we have so many examples around great businesses, they're not built like that. So that's the sole reason. So I'm applying this 2-3 basic criteria. That's why I feel that whole lot of them are not sticking to the basics, and that's why I feel that whole lot of them either are not going to survive beyond a point, or at least they're not going to scale up to the next level. I think India is just warming up. We have not even started as yet. If you look at the opportunity, typically, 2 markets I will look at. Maybe one is US, and second maybe China. China may not be maybe right comparison. They have a different format, in fact. But if you look at the scale the companies have achieved there, the most important part. So 2-3 aspects I'll always look at is. So it will be a combination of one, how the ecosystem evolves. Secondly, how the regulator keeps probably innovating or collaborating with everybody and have something which is for this particular market and not for the conventional formats only. And third is going to be that how you leverage different kind of technologies to address the consumer's pain, because end of the day, if any model is not addressing the end customer's pain, is not going to sustain. So coming back to your question, so both these market, whether it is China or US, whether success stories are there or the large companies are there, they are either they're solving a big problem for the customer using technology. Secondly, their models in terms of have evolved over a period of time. The ecosystem has evolved because everybody, like for example, DigiLocker is something, in terms of tech there is nothing much, but you need everybody to collaborate, have something on that. So that is going to take some time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me here.